Thanks for joining me here. So today I'm actually going to share with you 4 ways that you can have fun learning to reprogram that negative self-talk inside of your head and turning it into a cheer squad. So some of you might be going, there's no way in the world. Well, I've got to tell you, I had a lot of experience at that critical voice and I've managed to turn mine into a cheer squad. So if I can do it, you can do it. It's just a matter of how. And I'm going to share the how with you. 4 ways, as I mentioned. The first way is that we can actually change the tone. But before I share that with you, I'd like you to think of something that you say to yourself habitually when things don't go right, when you've stuffed up or you feel stressed or someone's let you down. I know I used to say something to myself all the time and it went like this. It was like, you silly idiot. And it was with that intensity. It was a very critical voice making myself wrong. So have a little think about what's something that you tend to say to yourself. And if you can't think of something, just make it up for the fun. Okay, so we can change the tone. The first thing that we can do is we can change the tone from really, really critical to really, really silly. Can you imagine how Donald Duck would say, you silly idiot? I haven't learnt how to do Donald Duck yet, but I am determined to do it someday. Because I couldn't do Donald, I would do a silly voice. And what I would love you to think about is every time that you're going to actually have a negative thought that goes on inside of your head from now on, you're going to imagine that you have your own set of ears, just like mine here, to remind you that it is time to reprogram it and to actually do something that makes it really, really silly. So instead of, you silly idiot, what if I said it like this? You silly idiot! You silly idiot! Is it going to have the same effect? Of course not. It's going to make me laugh. So try that now. Think of something that you say to yourself and then take a moment and actually say it in a silly or a Donald Duck type voice. Excellent. Now the other thing we can do, instead of being silly, we can change it to sultry or sexy. So, instead of going, you silly idiot, if I say, you silly idiot, what impact is that going to have? Of course, it's not going to be the critical parent. It's not going to put me down. It's actually going to have a really nice effect on me, I've got to tell you. You try that one now. So, one of the things we can do is change the tone. Another thing we can do is we can change the volume. So just like when we're sitting watching TV and the phone rings, what do? We hit the mute button. So imagine you have a remote next to you every time that voice pipes up and says something not so nice, and you can hit the remote, or you can imagine you have a volume switch up here and you can turn the volume down. So recapping, we can change the tone. We can change the volume. We can actually drown it out. Now, I had lots of success in doing this. So every time something not so nice would pop up in my head, I would say, out of here. I don't need you anymore. Out of here. So that's 3 ways. Change the tone, change the volume, drown it out. The 4th one is you can actually add a positive onto the end of a negative. It's so much easier to add that positive onto the end of the negative than it is to totally just think, oh, I have to think positively. Because chances are you've had a few years of rehearsing that negative one. I know I certainly had. And it's not just going to disappear overnight. But if you could actually add something to the end of it, it will change things. In Australia, when we are actually in a car and we decide we're going to do a U-turn, it takes us in a different direction. This is exactly the same. And so I've come up with an acronym. And that acronym is Y. And Y stands for yet. So if you find yourself saying, I can't do that, if you add, I can't do that yet, what does that imply? Exactly. It implies you can't do it yet, but you're going to be able to. So by adding, I can't do it yet, you're actually changing the way that you feel. The U stands for up until now. So if you say to yourself, I never get the promotion, it just doesn't happen. If you actually say, I never get the promotion, and you add up until now, what is that implying? That up until now you may not have, but things are about to change. The I, which is the final one for my acronym of a UE, is in the past. Put something in the past where it belongs instead of dragging it with you into the future. So if you say to yourself, oh my goodness, I always get stood down, or I always end up running out of money. If you say, I always run out of money by the end of the month, and you add in the past, what's it doing? It's putting it back there in the past where it belongs so that you can start with a clean slate. So let's recap. You can change the tone. You can change the tone to silly, or you can change the tone to sexy or sultry. You can change the volume, so you can hit the mute button or you can turn down the volume switch. You can drown it out by saying something like out of here, or you no longer serve me, or whatever it is that works for you. Or you can actually add a UE onto the end by adding either yet, up until now, or in the past. So have fun. This is all about having fun with this. We've had too much of the critical parent inside of our head for so long. And what have you got to lose? All you've got to lose is that critical voice. So thank you for joining me, and I do hope you've enjoyed this segment.